Dear Minister, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends of inclusive finance, it is with great pleasure that Banque de Luxembourg once again welcomes the Midi de la Microfinance conferences to our auditorium. We are proud to be your long-term partner. Since 2006, ADA has been presenting a wide range of themes and new angles on microfinance, as well as unique ways to capture the attention of the general public. Our bank has always been committed in playing its active role in society. Our tradition lies in providing ongoing support for charities, associations, foundations, non-governmental organizations in the health, humanitarian and cultural sectors. More recently, we have been involved in the promotion of systemic development of philanthropy, impact investment and social entrepreneurship in Luxembourg. Today, we are especially pleased to welcome Mrs. Runa Khan, founder and Chief Executive Officer of Friendship, as a speaker. Mrs. Khan, not-for-profit organization, is one of the bank's main long-term partners in its corporate social responsibility program. Since 2010, we have had the privilege of supporting Friendship in many ways. We started with a pilot fisherman project for which we provided funds to supply for 6 groups of fiberglass boats and 6 groups of wooden boats, and a credit facility to enable financing for boat and operational loans to the fishermen. Without going into details, I just want to mention that we are able to observe from afar the major changes in the lives of fishermen who gained independence as they were freed from the obligation to selling their fish to middlemen. Afterwards, we supported Friendship through the pro bono work of Banque de Luxembourg employees from the marketing, IT, and human resource departments. Being involved in such projects is a very rewarding experience for all stakeholders. If done in the long run, such collaborations may be called sustainable partnerships. For many reasons, I recommend these involvements, but don't forget the check too. This long-term approach guides our everyday work as bankers, serving and recommending investments to many entrepreneurs, private people, companies, philanthropists, and non-profit organizations. But now, climate change and microfinance cannot wait, and I leave the floor to Mr. Wagner to introduce the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane, for these introductory words. I'll be very brief because our fellow speakers today will have much more to tell you than I have to tell you. Welcome all of you, dear Minister, ladies and gentlemen, friends of microfinance. Welcome to the 31st edition of Midi de la Microfinance, organized this time again in partnership with Luxembourg Network in Fine and with the traditional support of Banque de Luxembourg and Luxembourg Development Corporation. Climate change and microfinance. What can microfinance do to climate change? It's a question. We'll not totally resolve it tonight, but we will certainly have some elements of reflection. Struggle with the effects of climate change is not only desirable, but is necessary. Everybody agrees is vital. Warning is not new, just calls for an urgent action, which action has to be global and coordinated to be effective. How could microfinance in this one have a role to play in this fight against climate change? We have 3 distinguished guests here to give us elements of an answer. We're honored to welcome Jérôme Broutin, the Chief Financial Officer in charge of social investments at GDF SUEZ RASSEMBLEURS D'ENERGIES, a corporate impact investment fund promoting access to sustainable energy for all and fighting against energy scarcity. Mr. Broutin has 20 years' experience at GDF SUEZ in the fields of energy, sanitation activities and wastewater treatment. Today, he will be the moderator of this debate between the two keynote speakers. One of them, Runa Khan, I met some years ago in Bangladesh when, together with Friendship Luxembourg, we celebrated 10 years anniversary of friendship, and I must say I was impressed by what they have done in Bangladesh, and since that my mind has, more reflections have crossed my mind. And then we have Carla Palomares of our ADA team for innovation in inclusive finance. She is a project officer, and she knows very much about clean energy. So I leave it up to you to confront your ideas, and after the debate, Goodwill Ambassador Ben Fayot for the European Year of Development will honor us to conclude the debate. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We go directly to the debate very quickly. Just a few words in introduction to say a word about Rassembleurs d'Énergies. So I won't be long. The Rassembleurs d'Énergies is a corporate impact investing fund dedicated to access to energy for all. The experience started a few years ago, so we just have a few years of experience, but we did invest today so far in around 15 enterprises. We did work also with Runa Khan through the foundation, so we know well your experience. I'm very honored to be there. I won't be long about the presentation of Rassembleurs d'Énergies. We will have time to discuss afterwards. Just keep in mind that we do invest in companies, and that's very important that we are investors, and we consider that the best way to assure sustainability in the long term is really to promote businesses. So new innovative business in order to really promote and guarantee the long term, the sustainability of the experience. So I will come back to you, and so Runa Khan, if you could, in a few words, present your initiative and yourself.
Thank you. I'm Runa Khan from Friendship, Bangladesh. So to tell you a little bit about Bangladesh and then our project. So Bangladesh is the number one country in the world which is going to be affected by climate change in the next 50 years. It is already a country which is prone to disasters. It's one-fourth the size of France, with nearly 3 times the population, with 60% of the land, 2/3 of the year underwater. So the challenges are enormous. And within that challenge, we have chosen to operate in the most inaccessible areas of the country, most hard to reach on the river islands of the Brahmaputra and on the coastal belt of the country. To reach and work in this environment, where people have nothing, where people have nothing, we needed to work in a holistic model. You could not put anything or give anything to people when they're standing on quicksand. So we needed to make the base and a firm base. Thus, we started a healthcare system, which is a 3-tier system, where from providing medicines to doing operations, we had to give them more than that. They needed access to education. They needed access to, when disaster struck, to be there. We had to be there. Governance, cultural projects. And after providing this base, we provided access to finance for economic development. And we did that through agriculture, the fishermen community, and lastly through electricity. When we chose to work with electricity, we had to make a very strong social decision. First of all, we were working in areas which would never be on the grid, on the national grid. Forget it. And there we had to provide electricity, of course, in an environmental way, which was not health hazardous, and contributed to the well-being of the community. We had to work in a way where we could not make electricity a consumption item, but an item which would be a replacement for what they already were using for light through kerosene. And this was a challenge, to make a modality which would be at that very minor scale, yet be able to be financially viable and sustainable when the scales came. And that was the challenge, and that is what we started to work with.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Coming back to you, Carla, so could you present in a few words, and I propose that you make it short, and we go through the questions during the debate in a few minutes to go really deeper in the model and to understand your initiative.
So, just, I represent ADA. ADA supports the microfinance institutions and the microfinance institutions national networks since 1994. We have projects in Latin America, West Africa, and Southeast Asia. And I work in the Department of Innovation in Inclusive Finance. What this department aims is to introduce in the portfolio of the microfinance institutions new products. For example, microinsurance, leasing for agriculture, equipment, remittances for migrants, or finance to just startups, and the loans for green technology. We understand the green technology by the renewable energy technology and the efficient energy technology. We launched 2 projects in Peru in 2011. I am from Peru, and I'm going to share with you the experience on the field from this project.
Thank you very much. Okay, we propose to go to the debate. The idea is we did structure that around 3 main questions, with 3 main themes. So I propose that you can explain, related to those questions, to those specific topics, what are the links with your initiative. First, just to draw the link between with the climate change. For sure, climate change is a huge challenge today for everybody worldwide, for emerging countries, for developed countries, for public bodies, for big corporates. Everybody is involved, for sure, to fight against climate change. But what I would like to highlight today is also to show and to draw to the attention of the assistants that also small-scale initiatives are really involved and can be really involved and can really play a key role against fight against climate change. And your smart initiatives are a very good example of that. So could you, just coming to this question, explain to what extent climate change is a lever for your initiative, and how do you intend to work in that domain through your initiative? We will come back. We will begin with Runa.
When someone asks me about how friendship works, one of the things that I have to always tell them is there are 2 factors that we can't move away from. We don't have to have a climate project to work with keeping climate in mind. And second, we do not have to do a project for humanitarian, for dignity and respect, because every element of our work has this incorporated within it, all our projects. We cannot work without keeping environment in our head and keeping the challenges of climate change. As it is, Bangladesh has always been a country which was challenged with disaster. That is there. We are still facing those. But what the climate change is bringing in is that it is bringing in to us an unpredictability of the changes that are occurring. So sitting in the cities, we face climate change, but it is not affecting our lives. When you're living on the fringe, as our people are, then climate change is a reality, which is a difference between life and death. So hence, all our projects need to be worked at keeping climate and the climate change is very much focused. We work with the bottom of the pyramid. We work in the most difficult to access areas, and that is the area which is most prone to the effects of climate change. Here we cannot just bring in money and say that, okay, here is your access to finance. That is impossibility. We have to ensure, as I mentioned, that they are given, that they don't live on quicksand because they're living on quicksand. So all the projects that we are having, microfinance or access to finance has to come after you have given them a foothold on which to stand. If you don't do that, whatever input you give them, it all goes through the sieve and it disappears. And they become more and more indebted. So this is the way that we decided to work with. So green finance and the way that we work in providing finance is to ensure that is first of all to have a vision which is much bigger than the organization. The vision is for development of this community, not only finance for us or having a project which is sustainable for the organization, but ensuring that these thousands of beneficiaries that we are reaching, they have their sustainability first. Because that is how the change for the BOPs or the bottom of the pyramid can happen. So we try to meld in a system which is holistic. We put in, of course, we put in finance, but we put in a very a kind of a finance where we ensure that the money that they pay us back is something which they can pay. So we move in with training, assessments, ensure that they have access to health, access to education. Once they have this, then the money is not drained. So the financing that is given to them is put on top of a platform which is already strong, so that the return can be a sustainable model. And the other thing that we also try to ensure is that we give them projects or access where even when we are not there, they can continue their business model, as we have done with the electricity project.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. Carla, okay.
That is on?
Maybe we can ask for a microphone. Thank you.
Hi.
Okay.
Well,
thank you.
Adam is an NGO who's supporting institutions. To benefit the clients, the final clients, we support the microfinance institutions. So we have a different approach. What we decide?
Okay.
Closer.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
What we decide to develop this kind of products? By one side, we can't ignore the climate change. In Peru, we lost 40% of our glaciers in the last 40 years. And we have the El Niño phenomenon, who is more and more frequent. In the last 15 years, we have 5 El Niño. The last one was just right now in March 2015. So it's and the people who is more exposed to this climate disaster are the vulnerable people, the client target of the microfinance institutions. That's why we work on the level of the MFIs directly. What can MFIs to do to tackle the climate change? They can do activities inside institutions, for example, recycle paper, or change the lamps. They can do outside activities. For example, the exclusion list to don't finance activities against the environment. And they can develop financial products. And we decided to support them in this specific issue.
Thank you. That's very important. You just spoke about financial services, and we'll come back to that, I think, in deeper details. That's very important. Drawing the link between MFIs. What can MFIs do? What do we see today? And I would like maybe to introduce the second question. What were the main difficulties you faced developing to develop your initiative and your business in a sustainable way? What we feel, and that also the reason why I'm there today, is to try to see how microfinance can, in a large-scale way, promote, let's say, access to energy or to clean cooking solutions. So coming to that specific question, what are the key success factors? What were the main difficulties you faced on the ground to develop your initiative? And how did you solve this question? Maybe we can spend a few minutes to go in more detail topics for the assistants to understand how on the ground, how you work on the ground, because I have to, as an investor, have to say that I'm really, really impressed. The field is, could say that the field is very fertile. I'm very impressed by the fact that the solutions you find on the ground are very innovative. You have to face so many difficulties, then you have to find innovative solutions, and that's very important to highlight that. So if you could, in a few minutes, explain your main difficulties on the ground and how did you cope with this?
Okay, we proposed to the MFIs a model that's called the two-hand model. That means we support the MFIs to do a partnership with the technology provider. So, because we have, in one hand, one microfinance institutions who know the needs of this population, who wants to develop products to respond to their needs. And they know how to approach these populations, but they don't have the green technologies. And on the other hand, we have providers who have a good quality product, but they don't know how to reach this population, this market, how to enter to these rural zones. And that's the role of the microfinance institutions. They have to do the marketing and the sales of the products because they know the people. And obviously, he has to finance and give the access to the product. And the provider has to do all the supply chains, the installation, the distribution, and the after-sales services. But what is a key factor of this model is the technical energy advisors. It's a person, and we support the MFIs to find this person and coach this person. It's the person who has in charge all the relationship with the technical supplier. It's the person who has to coordinate and be the link between the supplier and the loan officer. It's the person who has to manage all the process, because we have to remember that the MFIs are used to sell loans or saving products, but not technology, green technology.
Perfectly. That's absolutely right. That's a very key question. What do we observe on the ground is that the MFIs don't want to take the technology risk. Mm-hmm. So they don't want to take that, and they don't want to bear also the customer service or customer care. Yes. That's the difficulty. But they could be, for sure, their work is to do intermediation. So they could be very useful to help the development of the initiative through finance. So how can you then make the bridge between the manufacturers or the provider of the service and the MFI? So that's your initiative, that's your idea, trying to build that bridge or to
yes.
close this gap.
To convince the microfinance institutions to establish a win-win project.
Okay, I think that's very clear. Thank you very much. Runa.
So, when I first started with the, let's say, the one that, the microfinance project that we have mainly for electricity, we start off with that. So, how was it triggered? So, we go to the field and we find that to pay back per month, every month, a solar home system, the person, the man, the household owner was not feeding his own children. because it was socially better to have a solar panel. And actually, I had refused to do electricity at that point. We had started solar home systems, and I said, we are not going to get involved in this because it's something in my conscience I cannot accept. Then we found that let us work at it from a totally different point of view. What is the amount of money that they are actually today spending on light? What is it? It was less than €1. At that time, it was 0.75 euro cent. That is per month the family was spending on one kerosene lamp. So how do we better this without spoiling their financial life? This was an incredible challenge. It was like a challenge where you take to go to the moon, just on a different scale. Because I tell you, it was really, really something which people did not want to put their heads in, simply because it was too small. But that too small, in one area that we are working, it's 10.4 million people. And that was the market of the small. So, but the amounts were very simple, were very little. So we started off working upwards from there. So first of all, with GDF actually, we tried several systems. We tried systems of small microgrids, because that was the only solution. One light, 0.75 euro. That was the cost that we could take from the beneficiary. Starting from there, we started a system of microgrids. 20-watt panels, 5 families. They are 5 households, let's say, sometimes part of the same family, but it's 5 different households. 4 to 5. They could take 4 lamps or 5, and they would pay that amount of money to this one person who was responsible, and who would own this system after 3 years. So this was like a win-win situation. They were paying for it. They were getting an environmental-free, hazardous-free, because we get a lot of burn cases coming in because of light, kerosene lamps, etc. And the kerosene lamp is so small that there was no synergetic effect of income generation. Whereas when you gave the one light, you could actually, the children could study. We found people having social businesses because women were making sewing. The man could have his shop opened for 2 hours extra at night. So there was a kind of a synergetic effect with that one light. So we started that. All right, that was fine. Then where is the problem? The problem is that in these areas, it's so remote that to reach a community, you needed one person to take a boat to go to that community to get the money, which was less than the cost of the boat and the person. So how do you reach it? So we decided to have a system by which the model of the microfinance, which is the money that, purchase and cost, with limitations of 27% set by the government of Bangladesh, that's the interest we can charge. We have found a system on scale of 2,000 a year. It should become sustainable. We have not reached it as yet. It should become sustainable. However, the sustainability will not come unless we have a subsidy for reaching this community. So there are two different systems. The microfinance body can become sustainable, but reaching them does not. So there is a subsidy which needs to be involved in cases like this. And we found the same when we did the fishermen community. There was a certain amount of subsidy initially that was needed, and only on scale and training, workshop, having it all internalized, could we provide the services. So just to maybe tell you a little bit, if there's time.
No, I think that's clear, and that you really highlight the key factors. We see that there are so many constraints, as you said, really reaching the customer, providing a good service, a good product, but in an affordable way, and in that way, what you have to put in place, the ability for the customer to be able to pay over time, not to pay upfront, but to pay over time, something which is affordable for him. That's very key.
And affordable means that we also need to ensure that they continue services, which means the maintenance, it has to be set up properly, maintenance has to be done properly, the people on the field needed to be trained so that they can look after the system. The whole thing is part of the package. You cannot isolate only the sale of the MFI without giving this package. And and the whole, when we talk about a development happening actually in the field, if the package is not given, it doesn't work.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Just to
I think
add, it's interesting because we have the same challenge in Peru.
Yes.
We have two big challenges. The first one was the staff awareness raising. We should to train the staff. These technical energy advisors into the MFI have to train the staff to know what is a solar water heater, what are the benefits, and how much money a client is going to save by months if he uses this solar water heater instead of electrical. So we have to develop a lot of strategies to awareness raising of the staff, and they do the awareness to the clients. That's one. So that's more or less the same strategy. But the other big challenges is the supply chain. And we work in the mountains, so it's almost the same. So, the people live 4 hours or 8 hours from the cities, and it's not so easy not for the microfinance institutions, because they are used to have a model and visit more and more clients at the same time, but for the technology provider. And that was one of the most biggest challenges on this moment.
Right. Thank you very much for highlighting these key success factors. Just to conclude, because before we go to the questions with the audience, what is very important that we understand that you found a model. How do you then guarantee the sustainability in the long term? How do you prove that the model is robust? How do you prepare the model to scaling up in a large scale in order then to provide sustainability in the long term? If you can, in 1 minute, just.
What we did from Friendship was we kind of internalized the whole modality within the organization. So we have access to finance wing, which is an organization which is called Mushti, part of Friendship, which does the microfinance. However, the responsibility of the beneficiary to provide, that we feel for the beneficiary, to provide the service to the beneficiary, we really cannot leave it to a vendor. It doesn't work. We had to internalize what we call a vendor within Friendship. So we have another organization within that which provides for the services. So that is Nodi, which actually buys and ensures that the services are reached with the technical people within that within that. And also we have an involvement of Friendship, because choosing the poorest of the poor is also our responsibility. And going to the poorest of the poor. So we have a sustainable economic development part of Friendship which does the selections. So we select the poorest of the poor, which is our vision and which is our mission to do. Then we have the ensuring that the services, that they are getting the best model, and the services of training, of maintenance, of installation are done properly. Again, we have in-housed that. And then we have the microfinance unit. So 3 are working together in harmony, I hope.
Thank you very much. Right.
Let's see in the next 5 years.
Well, we realized that we have 2 key points to work. One is the go beyond the microfinance sector as Friendship, and reinforce the technology suppliers. And the other one is we have to create local with a specialized team on microfinance and green energy. This local unit has to work like a hub to link it, the two value change. And it's local, so he can support the microfinance institutions closer, and he can identify the good suppliers, and it can support them to improve their production, improve their supply chain logistic, and also to disseminate this new idea, because not all the technology suppliers knows why it's interesting to go a rural area. It will be more expensive. They don't know what is there is latent demand on this area. So that's why we think we have to create these local units, and once we arrive to dynamize the market of the green technologies, these units can become social enterprises. And that's how we are going to do this model
Exactly.
durable on the time. Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, that's very. Before we come back to the to the room, thank you very much. That's very interesting, very clever. We see that you have to set up a real model, a complete model. That's very complicated. So you have to find innovative solutions. There are still some challenges to face. The road is okay. But I think that I'm just as a witness of your initiative and in the field, that's very, very interesting, very innovative. So I would like to come to the room and to ask for questions in order to go deeper in details if you need to understand how these models can provide solutions in a sustainable way.
Yes, good morning. Yes, I had a question about your approach. You were mentioning that you wanted to make sure the client has the capacity to repay. That is a key client protection principle. And your approach was to measure how a client, how a beneficiary can get out of poverty and accumulate some profit to have better conditions. Could you tell us a little bit about the methodology or the tools you use to measure that? And of course, the key challenge here is to do it in a cost-effective way, because it can be very costly as well. I think it can be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, we do not give loans to customers who do not have basic platform to stand on. If the ultra poor needs to stand on a platform before we give any loans. Then we judge very well. For example, if we are in an agricultural manner, if we go to an island and we find that 20 people want agricultural pumps, whereas the capacity of that island to absorb the pumps are only 5, we will ensure that we only give them 5 pumps. Because that our mandate is very clear. It is to ensure that they can repay and they can become wealthier. Regarding electricity, for example, after 3 years, first of all, we have chosen to only give for the ultra poor what they are already spending. So it is not having impact on that. Number 2, after 3 years, they become owner of a system by which they can continue getting the money from their families and extra households in the same way. So they do not have to repay us back. The life of a bulb is 15 years. Life of a battery is 5 years. So they can also earn money from there. So these are the 2 quick things that... Yeah.
Thank you very much. You had a question, maybe?
But I would allow myself a remark, because notwithstanding your efforts, your speakers spoke more about access to electricity than climate change. But I wanted just to stress, I think there's a very good reason for that. Yeah. Patrick did a little bit of calculation of what it would save in terms of CO2, that the fact that now our beneficiaries in the Friendship Project would pass from kerosene to green energy. And he came to the conclusion that it would save about 15 kilograms of CO2 per year, whereas a Luxembourger consumes about 21 tons of CO2.
One person.
So 1 person per year. So that means that these projects, they arise not so much out of the wish to combat climate change. The beneficiaries are more, I would not say necessarily victims, but they are challenged by the climate change. But the projects rather arise from the need to access energy. And of course, if it then on top, it can be done in an ecological way and we would say has to be done in an ecological way, because in the regions the solar energy is the only one which is even technically sustainable over time, then that is of course a great bonus, but it's not initially the purpose of those projects.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you very much. Maybe some other question for Carla and the link with the IMF. I was quite interested about your initiative, and so could you, in a few words, explain the main topic and the main levers for you in the coming months or years to make that bridge between the manufacturers and the MFIs, in order to help the MFIs to play their role, that key role to help to finance and to fuel the development, in fact, of these initiatives?
Yes, the microfinance institutions have a real role to play on the development of the market, of green technology market. We saw in our projects in Peru and in Philippines that the providers sells more and more equipment by loan, but also by cash after the intervention of the microfinance institutions. So we have to recognize that the role we have to awareness raising of the population and to dissemination of this technology. Even if we don't have thousands of equipment selling by loan, we have effect in the development of these villages.
Okay, thank you very much. There's one topic we did not discuss in full details, but the impacts, but I would like to, not to conclude if there are any questions, but just to draw the attention to the fact that your initiatives and those initiatives really create impact. And you were speaking about technology, solar technology, and when you compare solar technology with the use of kerosene, that's a perfect example, but also clean cooking solutions with an very positive effect. So that's very important that we also highlight the fact that our purpose also as providers of financiers or investors also for sure to promote impacts and to create impacts. That's very, very important. And all those initiatives to create impacts have to be sustainable in the long run. And I will just highlight also the fact that the MFIs for us are clearly a key success factor. That could be, but we understand the constraints, but let's find a way to get them more involved in the development of their activities, because you have to be aware that all those companies, once they have to scale up, they have really face a financial gap. In fact, that's very difficult for them to bear, I would say, the working capital needs, but to provide the equipment, but also to provide the credit to the customer. So trying to work together and trying to draw the bridge between the manufacturers, the MFIs, could really be a great lever for the developments of these initiatives.
If I could just expand on that. For our whole project system, we are needing approximately 17% subsidy. Now, the Bangladesh government is providing per light bulb in the city to rich people more than 40 to 50% subsidy. So sustainability, you are reaching out like you're wanting environment solution from the most poorest of the people, not the rich countries so much, but we are, kind of working on that. In the same way, the Bangladesh government is asking us also to reach energy to the ultra poor. They are subsidizing 40 to 50% through subsidized diesel, and the government buys it all on the main grid and then subsidizes and gives it to the people. So double subsidization is happening for the rich, whereas for the poor, with the system that we have found, it's 17% subsidy only. So, sustainability needs to be evaluated. How do we evaluate sustainability in a case like this? It's to ensure that the people can eat and live and just become a little bit more empowered to be able to deal with their lives. And if we can make them reach that before ensuring that our organization reaches it, for me, I think that's a very big step, that the thousands of people, all the beneficiaries can reach that level. That's important instead of one organization, which needs it very much. We have to be sustainable and viable, but we really have to ensure that they are sustainable and viable first.
Exactly. And as you explained very well, that the sustainability is providing a good service, a good product to the customer, bring really good and relevant solution to the customer. That is real sustainability in the long term. So thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you very much for your question. I think if we are just in time before concluding this and going for lunch, so I will leave the floor to Mr. Fayot for the conclusion, and thanks very much for these presentations.
Ladies and gentlemen, having left Parliament in 2013, the Luxembourg government thought that I was fit enough to act in 2015 as a goodwill ambassador for the European Year of Development. So here I am in that function. Let me say a few words about this European Year of Development. Why do we have a European Year of Development in 2015? Because 2015 is a crucial year for the world governance in respect to climate change, in respect to solidarity in this world. The three major events take place in this year 2015. In July, in Kenya, an international conference about financing development. In September 2015, at the United Nations, will be decided the Millennium Development Goals for the next 20 years of our planet. And in Paris, in December 2015, hopefully a final strategy against the climate change in the world. So we speak about world governance, and therefore also the slogan of the European Year of Development is our world, our dignity, our future. I stress the our in this slogan, because we don't speak anymore about a developed world and a world in development, or a so-called third world. So it's our world, and everything which happens in that world concerning climate change, as well as poverty, eradication of poverty, or problems of democracy, of corruption, concerns us all. And these days we can see in the media what happens around Europe, how the poverty in Africa, in Asia, everywhere in the world concerns us all. So I think that the action which governments, NGOs, and also companies can undertake in developing economy, in developing new conditions for living for people everywhere in the world are very important. I liked very much the way Mrs. Runa Khan expressed the holistic approach, as she called it, of what they were doing in Bangladesh, in a very special place of Bangladesh, where it concerns to eradicate poverty for the poorest of the people in this region. As you remarked, she speaks about people, very poor people in one region of Bangladesh. And she speaks about people in the cities. And she speaks about the government looking only at people in the cities and not looking at people in the poorest region of this country. So in every country, in the poorest country, in more developed countries, and even in developed countries, there is poverty, there are problems, and the way to solve those problems can be a bit different in every part of the world, but they have to answer the logic, not only the economic and financial logic, but they have to look after the social logic, the ecological logic, the logic of struggle against climate change, and the logic of eradicating poverty. And that logic should be in our head every time when we take decisions for us here in Europe, for the world, in international institutions and in organizations where we work in. So thank you very much for what you told us today, excuse me. And I would also congratulate NGOs as the Friendship NGO, also ADA, with the long-term work they are doing in microfinance. I like more the French word, longue haleine, for the microfinance system, and I think also that is an important task of solidarity to work in such NGOs and to give such NGOs support for making the world better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fayot. So before we go and share a moment together for lunch, I would like to especially thank Ada for organizing this Midi de la Microfinance, which is a very good opportunity to discuss all those very interesting matters and topics and spend a moment with you. Thank you very much for sure for Banque de Luxembourg for hosting us. That's in this very beautiful room. That's very convenient for everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sure to the cooperation of Luxembourg, to all the networks in FINE and all the partners, and thank you for attending this meeting. To all the participants, all of you, thank you very much. And just have a look at absolutely, thank you. At the website, you will find the last issue of Pastoral Review, which is very interesting, and you will have many information around all these topics. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention, and let's share a moment together for lunch. Thank you, Runa. Thank you, Carla. Thank you very much. Have a good day.